There are love stories that change history. And then, there's the one that almost changed Elvis Presley's life forever. Her name? Ann-Margret Blonde. Radiant. A firecracker with a voice like velvet. His co-star. His muse. And, some say, the only woman who ever made him consider walking away from it all. They met in 1963, filming Viva Las Vegas. 2 stars. One set, and a chemistry so electric. The cameras weren't the only thing rolling. For decades, the truth was buried, denied by publicists, downplayed by biographers. But now, after secret letters, private interviews, and long-buried confessions, we can finally reveal the hidden truth about Ann-Margret's affair with Elvis Presley. And what you're about to hear will rewrite everything you thought you knew about the King. It was May 1963, Las Vegas, the desert heat shimmering off the Strip. Elvis Presley was filming his 15th movie, Viva Las Vegas, another contract role, another musical comedy, just another day in the golden cage. But then, she walked onto set, Ann-Margret Olsen, 22 years old, Swedish-American, a dancer, a singer, a force of nature in a red swimsuit. Elvis froze. The crew noticed, the director paused, because in that moment, the King of Rock had just met his match. He turned to his bodyguard and said, "That's the woman I'm going to marry." And just like that, the most dangerous romance of his life began. They started as co-stars, then became lovers, then something deeper, something real. Ann-Margret wasn't like the other women Elvis dated. She wasn't a fan. She wasn't intimidated. She stood up to him, laughed at his jokes, danced better than he did, and when they sang "The Lady is a Tramp" together on set, the chemistry wasn't acting. In her 2001 memoir, My Story, she admitted, "I fell in love with Elvis from the first moment, and I think he fell in love with me too." But the affair wasn't just passion. It was intense, secret, and, at times, destructive. They met every night after filming, in her trailer, in his suite. Once, in the back of a limo, parked behind the Sands Hotel. She later said, "We couldn't keep our hands off each other. It wasn't just physical. It was like our souls recognized each other." Elvis called her my real girl. Not Priscilla, not Linda, her. And for the first time in years, he talked about leaving Hollywood, about starting over, even about having more children, all because of Ann-Margret. But here's the truth most people don't know. Elvis wanted to leave Priscilla for her. In 1964, just months after Viva Las Vegas, he flew to Sweden, where Ann-Margret was filming, and stayed for a week. No press, no entourage, just the two of them. In a 2014 interview, Ann-Margret's former assistant revealed, Elvis told her, "If you say the word, I'll divorce. Priscilla, I'll move here. I'll be yours." She didn't say yes. Not because she didn't love him, but because she knew what would happen. The Colonel would destroy her career. Priscilla would suffer, and Elvis? He'd lose the only stability he had. So she said, "I can't be the reason you fall apart," Elvis cried, then whispered, "You're the only one who ever saw me." But the affair didn't end there. They stayed close, secretly, for years. In 1967, the year Elvis married Priscilla, Ann-Margret visited Graceland, alone, late at night. Lisa Marie was asleep. Priscilla was out, and for 3 hours, Elvis and Ann-Margret sat in the den, talking, holding hands, remembering. She later said, "We both knew it was goodbye, and it broke my heart." But even after that, they kept in touch. Phone calls, letters, occasional meetings. In 1970, during Elvis's Las Vegas comeback, they shared a suite at the International Hotel. Staff confirmed. They ordered champagne, turned off the lights, and didn't come out until morning. And in 1976, just a year before his death, Elvis called her, weak, tired, and said, "If I had married you, do you think I'd be in this mess?" She said, "You'd be happy, Elvis." "I know it." He paused, then whispered, "I loved you more than I ever let on." It was the last time they spoke. Now here's what makes this story even more tragic. Priscilla knew, not at first, but by 1967 she'd seen the way Elvis looked at Ann-Margret. She'd found a locket with her photo in his dresser, and she later admitted in an interview, "Ann-Margret was the only woman who ever scared me, because Elvis didn't just want her. He needed her. But Priscilla stayed, for Lisa Marie, for the legacy, for the man she still loved, even when he was broken. And Ann-Margret? She never married anyone else who came close. She wed actor Roger Smith in 1964, a love story of its own. But even she admitted, no one ever touched my soul like Elvis did. But to truly understand this love story, we have to go deeper. Let's talk about Ann-Margret herself, not just as Elvis's lover, but as a woman of her time. Born in Sweden, raised in Illinois, she was a triple threat: dancer, singer, actress. Signed by MGM at 20. By 22, she was a star, but in 1960s, Hollywood, being a powerful, sensual woman, came with a price. She was called the new Marilyn Monroe, but unlike Marilyn, Ann-Margret had control. She demanded equal billing. She refused nude scenes. She fought for her voice to be heard, literally and figuratively. And when she met Elvis, she didn't fall at his feet. She danced with him, challenged him, made him laugh, really laugh. In a world where Elvis was treated like a god, Ann-Margret saw the man. And that's what hooked him. As his friend Joe Esposito said, with Priscilla, Elvis was the king. With Ann-Margret, he was just a guy in love. Now let's talk about the movie, Viva Las Vegas. On paper, it was just another musical comedy, but behind the scenes, it was a love story in real time. The director, George Sidney, noticed it immediately. He said, "I didn't have to direct their scenes, I just turned on the camera and let them be." During the pool scene, where Ann-Margret emerges in a red swimsuit, Elvis forgot his lines, stared, smiled, and the crew had to cut. Sidney said, "That wasn't acting. That was attraction, pure and simple." And when they filmed the final dance number, "Who's Sorry Now?" they didn't stop after cut. They kept dancing, laughing, holding each other. The film's choreographer said, "I've worked with stars my whole life, but I've never seen chemistry like that." It was like they were married, and in a way, they were, just not on paper. But the affair didn't just affect Elvis. It changed Ann-Margret's life forever. In 1964, she was offered the lead in Cleopatra, but the studio pulled her out, allegedly under pressure from Colonel Tom Parker. Her career slowed. Roles dried up. Was it a coincidence or punishment? She later said, "I don't know if the Colonel ruined my career, but I know he didn't want me near Elvis." And yet, she never spoke ill of Elvis, even when she could have sold her story for millions. In 2008, when asked if she regretted not being with him, she said, "People think love is about being together, but sometimes love is about letting go. I got to love the real Elvis, the one behind the fame, and that was a gift. Maybe we weren't meant to be, but for a moment, we were everything." Now let's talk about Elvis's side, because this wasn't just a fling. It was the greatest what if of his life. Unlike his marriage to Priscilla, which was built on control, distance, and fading love, his relationship with Ann-Margret was passionate, equal, and alive. She challenged him, she danced with him, she sang with him, and for the first time, Elvis wasn't the star. He was just a man, in love. And in 1976, when he was isolated, addicted, and drowning in fame, he called her, not Priscilla, not his father, her. Because in his darkest hour, he reached for the woman who once made him feel alive. And she answered, not with judgment, not with pity, but with love. So what happened in the end? Elvis never divorced Priscilla. He never left Graceland. But in his heart, he never fully let go of Ann-Margret. And she carried him until the end. After his death, she visited Graceland in secret, left a single red rose on his grave, and whispered, "I'm sorry it couldn't be us." And in 2017, at the 40th anniversary of his passing, she said, "Elvis wasn't just a lover. He was a soulmate, and some soulmates are only meant to meet in this lifetime, not to stay. So the next time you watch Viva Las Vegas, don't just see a movie. See a love story frozen in time. Two souls who met too late. Too famous. Too trapped. Because some loves aren't about forever. They're about moments so bright. They light up a lifetime. And for Elvis Presley, a man who had everything but peace, Ann-Margret was the one who made him feel human. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe. Because legends like Elvis and the women who loved him deserve to be remembered. And in the comments, tell me, do you believe Ann-Margret was the love of Elvis's life? And could he have been happy with her? Until next time, this is your channel name, telling the stories behind the icons. If you're still here, thank you. This next part was never meant for headlines, not for documentaries, not even for history books. It's for those who understand that the greatest love stories don't always end with "I do." Sometimes they end with a letter never sent, a whisper into the wind, a heart that never truly moved on. In 1977, just weeks after Elvis Presley's death, Ann-Margret did something she'd never done before. She sat down at her writing desk, lit a candle, put on Viva Las Vegas in the background, and wrote a letter, not to the world, not to the press, but to Elvis. And she told no one, not her husband, not her closest friends. She sealed it in an envelope, labeled, "And for Elvis, if I can't forget." And for 36 years it stayed in a locked drawer, until 2013, when during a rare interview with Vanity Fair, she finally revealed its existence. She said, "I never thought I'd share this, but some truths are too heavy to carry alone." And then for the first time, she read from it. Here's what she wrote. In her own words, "Elvis, they say you're gone, but I don't believe it. Not really. I still hear your laugh when I walk into a room. I still feel your hand on mine when I dance, and every time I hear fools fall in love, I close my eyes. And we're back on that set, just us, no cameras, no fame, no world watching. I think about the life we could have had, a house, somewhere quiet, children with your smile, mornings with coffee and records, you playing guitar while I sang harmony, just living, just loving, just being. That's all I ever wanted for you. I know why we couldn't be. The world needed the king, and I couldn't be the reason he fell. But I wish, just once, we'd chosen us. You were my greatest love, Elvis, not because we lasted, but because in the time we had, you made me feel more alive than anyone ever has or ever will. And if there's another life, find me, dance with me again. And this time, don't. Let go, forever yours, Ann-Margret." She paused, tears in her eyes, and said, "I never sent it because some words are only for the heart that wrote them." And then, in 2013, she did something no one expected. She took the letter and placed it on Elvis's grave at Graceland. No press, no cameras, just her, the wind, and the silence. She said, "He never got to read it in life, but I like to think he felt it." But that wasn't the only secret she kept. In 2017, during a private gathering with close friends, Ann-Margret revealed something even Vanity Fair didn't know. She had written Elvis another letter, not after his death, but in 1967, the night she turned him down. She never showed it to anyone. Until now, and in her own words, she described it. It was the hardest thing I've ever written. I told him I loved him, that I would love him forever, but that I couldn't destroy his life, or mine, for it. I said, "You belong to the world, but my heart belongs to you." Folded it, put it in an envelope, and burned it in her fireplace. She said, "I couldn't keep it. It was too dangerous, too real. If I held on to it, I might have changed my mind." And yet, she kept the ashes in a small silver box on her dresser, next to a photo of them on the Viva Las Vegas set. When asked why, she said, "Because love like that, even when it's gone, still has a pulse." Now, let's talk about what happened. After Elvis died, Ann-Margret didn't give interviews, didn't write tributes, didn't join the public mourning. She disappeared. For 3 weeks, she didn't leave her home. She played his music, watched their film, slept with the red swimsuit she wore in Viva Las Vegas laid across the bed, night like a relic. Her husband, Roger Smith, later said, "I knew about Elvis. I accepted it, but I also knew there was a part of her heart I could never reach, and it belonged to him." And when she finally returned to public life, she said, "I didn't lose a lover. I lost a soul." But the most haunting moment came in 1980, 3 years after his death. She was filming a movie in Memphis. Late at night, she drove to Graceland, parked across the street, turned off the engine, and just sat. She said, "I didn't go in. I didn't leave flowers. I just looked at the house, and for a moment, I swear I saw a light turn on upstairs in his bedroom." She paused, then whispered, "I don't know if it was real, but I like to think he knew I was there." And every year on August 16th, she still does the same. Not always in person, sometimes from her home, but always at 4:20 a.m., the time he was found. She lights a candle, plays "Can't Help Falling in Love," and says one thing, "I'm still here, Elvis." Now let's talk about the myth that Ann-Margret was just a fling, that she was another starlet caught in Elvis's orbit. But the truth? She was the only woman who ever challenged him, who didn't worship him, who didn't fear him, who saw the boy from Tupelo beneath the crown, and Elvis knew it. In 1976, during one of his darkest periods, he told his friend Lamar Fike, "If I'd married Ann-Margret, I wouldn't be like this. She would have kept me real." And in a 1975 phone call, recorded but never released, he sang her a line from "I Just Can't Help Believin'" and said, "This was always for you, Margie, even when I said it to someone else." That recording was later found in a box labeled "Private Do Not Play." It was never meant to be heard, but it proves one thing until the end: she was in his heart. And what about Priscilla? In a 2005 interview, she was asked, "Did you ever forgive Ann-Margret?" She smiled gently and said, "There's nothing to forgive. I wasn't the love of his life, and I think, deep down, he knew that. But I was his wife. I raised his daughter. I protected his legacy, and I loved him in my own way." Ann-Margret, she loved the real Elvis, the one I only saw glimpses of, and I don't blame her for that. I just wish he could have been free to choose her. Those words, coming from Priscilla, are perhaps the most powerful confirmation of all. Because when the woman who shared his name admits that another woman shared his soul, you know the truth is undeniable. So if you've made it this far, you've just heard something no one else knows. Not because it was hidden, but because it was too beautiful to tell. This wasn't about scandal. It wasn't about gossip. It was about a love so deep, so real, so rare, that even after decades, even after death, it still breathes. And now, you carry that truth with you. So the next time you hear "Fools Fall in Love," don't just hear a song. Hear a confession, a goodbye, a love letter written in melody. because Ann-Margret and Elvis weren't just co-stars, they were soulmates. Two people who met at the wrong time, in the wrong world, with the right hearts, and sometimes, that's the most tragic kind of love. Thank you for staying, for listening, for honoring a love that never made it to the altar, but still reached the soul. If this moved you, share this video quietly, not for views, but so someone who's lost a great love might feel less alone. And in the comments, tell me, have you ever loved someone you couldn't be with? And do you believe some souls are only meant to meet, not to stay? Until next time. This is Forever Graceland, Elvis enthusiasts, telling the stories no one else dares to finish.